Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is 10 p.m. Eastern Time. It is 7 p.m. Pacific Time, and it's really early on Wednesday if you're over in Europe. Uh, but that means, hey, it's time for a very special Q&A episode number 8 of Poker Uncensored. And today, we're looking to address a lot of the controversy that came out of last week's episode. A lot of the internet haters, the losers, the trolls, etc. They weren't happy, and so, not being afraid to address that, your host, Matt Solom, is going to talk about this. He is nicknamed His Highness of Hold'em. He's played poker tournaments and cash games in multiple states and even internationally. He's based out of the greater Boston area, and some of you may know he has recently launched a poker community and a podcast to give people the freedom and the opportunity to talk about all things poker without having to be subject to persecution and censorship, because those are big issues. A lot of people are afraid to talk. A lot of people don't want to tell how they really feel about stuff because they're afraid they're going to be ostracized. They're afraid they're going to be attacked by the trolls. And, it's sad. People really need to respect free speech. They really need to respect differences of opinion. Yeah, you might not agree with somebody. That doesn't mean you should have the opportunity to silence them. So we're going to get continuing on here. We're getting some great fun from the local poker trolls here. So yeah. Anyway, continuing on. So tonight's focus is basically on the fact that a lot of people who couldn't watch live, they were put on major tilt when they went in and they watched the episode last week after the fact. And I'm not afraid to take on that controversy. I'm going to answer the hard questions tonight. By the way, you could be a part of the show. So if you didn't watch the episode before, or let's say you did watch the episode before and you have questions, feel free to send them in. You can post them directly on YouTube. That's probably the easiest way to do it, because if you're watching this thing now, you're obviously on YouTube. You can also tweet using hashtag #PokerUncensored on Twitter. You can only do 280 characters that way. And the other way you could do commentary, you can go into the Northeast Poker Unlimited Facebook group, and you can post your questions there. So, first thing we're going to talk about tonight, the Limp Bounty Tournament in New Hampshire. Yes, that is a topic that we talked about last week on the podcast live. $250 bounty on Joe Frizzy and Alex Acosta, founders of the Limp group. $150 high hand. Free food for everybody who shows up, apparently. You get like a $5 voucher for that. Tournament's tomorrow, 5:30 p.m., the Poker Room in Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. And Juan Cinquecento said, "Hey, dumbass, Joe Frizzy is ranked higher than you in poker, so how can you claim you're going to beat him?" Yeah, I said I'm going to show up. I'm going to try to take Joe Frizzy out of the tournament. This guy thinks, one, I'm dumb, but secondly, he said, "Hey, Joe Frizzy is ranked higher than you, so how can you beat him?" Well, we fact-checked that. Actually, yeah, Joe is ranked higher, right? He's the 58th best player in the state of New Hampshire. He has 48,000 plus in career winnings. Meanwhile, I only rank 175th. I only have about 11,000 in career earnings. So yes, Mr. Frizzy is ranked higher than me, but that doesn't mean that he's unbeatable. That doesn't mean that he is some sort of god of poker that everybody has to be afraid of, because when he shows up, he's automatically going to win. He is beatable. And every other poker player out there is beatable. You look at the people that have won millions and millions of dollars. They've been on ESPN, live at the World Series final table. Some of those people have gone into tournaments and they've lost. You look at Chris Moneymaker. He won the World Series of Poker many years ago. Moneymaker shows up. Nobody knows who he is. He's some guy who played an online satellite into the thing. He actually manages to beat out people who had been playing poker for years, people who had won millions of dollars before, people who are said to be the best in the game. And Moneymaker shows up. He beats these people. The guy bluffs all in against Sam Farha. He bluffs all in against him, right? Moneymaker doesn't have a winning hand. He has like queen high or king high, right? He bluffs all in. The guy folds, right? He picks up a huge amount of chips. And that's what people got to get about some of these folks in New Hampshire, right? Yeah, they may be good players. They're ranked high, but you can win against them. Now, Jay wants to know, hey, says, Frizzy and Lacasse are hypocrites. They complain all the time about poorly structured events in New Hampshire, and push for great 250 events. This event is a $50 buy-in if a crappy structure, true or not. I don't think this is a poorly structured event. So I'll explain why, right? So New Hampshire, due to the burdensome regulation that the poker rooms there are under, they have to finish their tournaments before 1 a.m. A lot of people have jobs during the business day, right? Stock market's open till 4 o'clock. People got to work. They gotta do stuff. They got to be at the office. So you start an event at 5:30 so people can go to work and then come play afterwards. That event has got to end by 1 a.m. So you've got basically, I think, I want to say 7.5 hours, right? 7.5 hours to end an event. Whereas when you're playing at the Borgata, right, they can start at 4 o'clock. They can let people register all the way till 8 or 9. And they don't have to end at 1 a.m., right? They can keep going and going and going. So the New Hampshire structures have to be able to finish the tournament up in a timely fashion. But if you look at this $50 format, right, the so $50 buy-in, 15,000 chips, you can rebuy, you can add on. This is a format that sounds familiar. And why is that? Well, Manchester Poker runs basically the exact same format every Tuesday and every Thursday, and they draw a huge field. So it's a popular format, right? It's an affordable amount. Most people can come up with $50 to play. If they can't come up with $50 to play, then they've probably got some other financial issues. But this is the type of event that can draw a decent crowd, right? It's not meant to be the type of tournament where you start playing and you got to play for 12 hours plus to get to the end. But there is one big flaw in the structure, and that is when you get down to the final table, as you get into the higher levels, the skill goes out the window because it basically becomes a who's going to get lucky, wake up with ace king, get it all in, get called by ace queen suited because everybody's below 10 big blinds. And then what's going to happen is, luck prevails. And usually what happens too is you wind up having to chop the tournament because it's kind of pointless to try to play when it's a luck fest. You're playing bingo. You're not really playing skilled poker. So that's what happens. But now Jace chiming in saying actually his comment really wasn't about the structure of the event, rather that Frizzy and the Claws are like hypocrites where they complain until somebody makes an event to make them happy for the time being. Now, it's interesting. I don't think this event was simply made to appease these two people. Yeah, they do have some influence over poker in the area. They got a lot of followers that listen to them, but I don't think I've seen either of them in Manchester in a while. And that tournament just had days where Tuesday night they were drawing 100 plus people, right? They drew 100 plus people, and to my knowledge, now I wasn't at all of those 100 plus draw tournaments. I was at one of them. The one that I was at, I didn't see Joe Frizzy there. I didn't see Alex Acosta there. So you can have success without them being involved or being there. But I think ultimately, hey, this is a smart move for Hampton Falls because, again, these two having a lot of followers and a lot of people who are going to play where they say to go play. If they say, hey, come to Hampton Falls where the bounties, you're going to draw people in. And the $5 food card thing is almost a genius move. I don't think they have a lot on the menu that sells for $5 or less. Might have a couple things, but that $5 food card is probably going to lead to people deciding, hey, I'm going to get some sort of food. It's going to be like an $11 food item, right? And so, hey, that's $6 that they're going to earn off that. And by the way, the margins are probably fine that giving away the $5. Which, by the way, people are also going to be like, oh, let me get a couple of beers, run up a tab of $45, and bang, bang, the food and beverage program at Hampton Falls actually makes some money. So, continuing on though, so, facts, yes, Joe Frizzy is ranked higher than me at poker. He may be a better poker player than me, but it does not mean he is unbeatable. It doesn't mean he is some sort of poker god who will win every hand he plays and win every tournament he plays. Now, continuing on, right? So Jackie has a question. When you don't make it past the second, Jackie 83 asks, when you don't make it past the second or maybe even the first level, are you going to cry on the way home and quit poker? Well, the answer to that, no, I'm not going to cry on the home and quit poker. Now, if I don't make it past the second level of this thing, it means that some sort of ridiculous cooler happened. It means that, I got it all in pre-flop with pocket aces. Some clown called off with Jack 10 suited, and somehow the flop ended up being like ace, king, queen. They, flop the nuts, and I don't boat up and I'm exiting the tournament, right? It's going to be something ridiculous like that. It's going to be a hand like what I had at the Venetian. Again, get it all in with pocket aces, guy calls with queens, runs out 4 of a kind. So forbidding something like that from happening, I'm planning to play tomorrow, and I'm planning to make it very deep in this tournament. I am planning to make it to hopefully the final table because I am playing this thing to win, right? And I am coming to collect that bounty. But ultimately, if somebody else knocks out Mr. Lacoste or Mr. Frizzy from the tournament, so be it. I'll make my money by getting down to the final table and hopefully winning the thing, or at least being around when a chop deal comes up. So that addresses the questions that came in on the Limp called Bounty Tournament. Continuing on to our next piece of information here. United States President Donald John Trump. Now, a lot of people, for various reasons, have some very unique feelings when it comes to Mr. Trump. Some people they really don't like him. Some people think he's the man. Some people love the president, and they would do practically anything for the president. As we've seen, some people have claimed that they will break the law for the president. So, the president, I think is an interesting person in the sense that no matter what, people have this huge opinion on him. He creates a ton of controversy, and he gets a ridiculous amount of media attention. That's the case with our president, right? He just gets a ridiculous amount of media attention. The thing is, nobody actually even really asked about the president for this podcast. I just figured if I said I was going to talk about him, people will tune in because he creates controversy. That said, will he be impeached? Probably. It only needs a majority vote in the House, and the opposition party controls it. So then, will he be removed? Well, that's the real question because, yeah, you can impeach him. Bill Clinton got impeached. Did you actually get him out of office? Probably not. Why? Oh, because you need a 2/3 vote in the Senate, and the Senate is not going to boot the guy out of office unless, again, the charges can be proven with hard evidence, etc. So I don't think that's going to happen. Now, Jay has a chest in here. Back to poker, right? Statistically projected. Suited is the most favored underdog hand versus pocket aces. Isn't this a case of wanting the call all day long until the end result takes place? Yes, that is true. If I get it all in pre-flop with pocket aces and some guy with Jack 10 suited decides to call off, even though Jack 10 suited does have some potential to actually be able to essentially suck out and win, I want them to ultimately call off long term because most of the time I should win that hand, right? Pocket aces should be good most of the time against Jack 10 suited. Now, they're certainly not drawing dead, right? They obviously have the opportunity to somehow, suck out on you. But, let's say I have the ace of hearts and the ace of diamonds, and my opponent, if they have, Jack 10 not of hearts or diamonds, they obviously have an opportunity to hit that additional flush draw that I can't hit. So if they do get, let's say they have Jack 10 of clubs, they get their 3 clubs, they're going to probably win. Let's say the flop is deuce Jack 10. Well, they've hit 2 pair, they're going to win. Let's say the flop is 8 9, and then they have the open-ended straight draw, and the 7 hits on the river. Yeah, they're going to win there. But ultimately, you get it in with pocket aces against Jack 10 suited. You're a 78% favorite in that hand, and that's usually a good situation to be in, right? If you got it in, granted, I mean, there's some better times if you get it in with you flop a set and your opponent has I don't know, an under pair to the board or something. Yeah, that's probably a better situation to get it in. But ultimately, you're well ahead there, and you would want that. Now, let's see here. Next question that's come up. We have Mr. Chris Paolino back here watching the podcast live. He believes that Jack 10 may not be. I can't even tell what he's saying. JTS is the most favored end versus ace is hot. LOL. OL. I have no idea what the guy's asking. If he wants to form a question that's actually reasonable, maybe we'll talk about it. So, continuing on to the next topic on our podcast, Raymond Tyrone Davis. Yeah, I knew this guy was going to be controversial when we talked about him. And why? Well, guess what? He's a poker player who's facing jail time. Why is he facing jail time? Did he rob a bank? No, he basically sexually assaulted minors, and nobody really likes people that are accused of sexually assaulting minors. Hey, the bank robber, you could be like, yeah, he had to make a living, right? Whatever. All right, so you robbed the bank. I mean, that's still bad, but it's not as bad as sexually assaulting children. Needless to say, he's in jail right now, waiting on a trial, facing a life sentence. Because in Nevada, they're not so soft. You get a life sentence when you rape children. You might get out on parole after 35 years as a bare minimum if you're able to convince, I believe, a judge that you're not going to reoffend. But it's a 35-year time that you're looking at spending behind bars before they even consider letting you out. So Davis is looking at some serious time behind bars. And this guy, well, someone says, hey, Earl, this Earl C., you must feel like a big guy talking about someone while they're in jail. Why should everyone know about this when he's innocent until proven guilty? Well, it's not my fault he's in jail. I didn't tell him to go commit these alleged crimes, right? But yeah, he's in jail. He's being held on $500,000 bail. But why should everyone know about this? Well, first off, the local news station ran a story about the guy. They have way more viewers than this podcast does. Yeah, we had, I think, one of our biggest episode, we had like 600 people view the thing. The local news station in Las Vegas is having, thousands upon thousands, if not tens of thousands of people watching their content. So people knew about this, but remember, the folks in Real Grinders tried to cover it up. So why should everybody know about this? So yes, under the law, he is innocent until proven guilty. However, criminal charges against someone are generally a public record, which in the state of Nevada they are. So the public has a right to know. Secondly, let's say that you are the mother or the father of young children. You would want to know that Mr. Davis stands accused of these serious crimes so that if he were let out on bail, you could protect your children from ending up victims of Mr. Davis. This is a guy who is alleged to have committed 6 felony counts related to the sexual assault of minors, right? Secondly, we gave Mr. Davis the opportunity to have his side of the story told on this podcast. His counsel declined to provide any response or any input. The guy's lawyer is welcome to come on the podcast, right? If he wants to come on, I will do an entire episode where I simply talk to this guy. We take questions. We let him represent his client. And we let him explain to the world, to the poker community, why his client is not a bad person, why his client is going to be found innocent. Because presumably they're going to trial and they're going to do some sort of effort to prove, or essentially, they don't actually have to prove anything, right? So the defense simply has to defend the client against the allegations that come from the state's attorney, right? So the state's attorney has to prove guilt. If they don't do that, the person is actually found not guilty. Obviously, the defense is going to try to put a hole in whatever the state's attorney presents. In any case, people have a right to know about this. They have a right to be able to protect their children. And Slice says, he seems like a good guy. Well, would a good guy go around assaulting children? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think a good guy tries to make sure that children are protected. I think that a good guy makes sure that people like Davis can't hurt minors. And so, if Davis indeed did what he is accused of here, the state of Nevada should seek to have him sentenced to the maximum time permitted in jail, which would be life behind bars. And I'll ensure that he never gets out. That will ensure he never gets out. He never hurts anybody else again if he is guilty. Jay wants to know, actual court versus court of public opinion, despite what happens in real court, what is your opinion? Your opinion in the court of public opinion? Well, in the court of public opinion, this guy is guilty, right? There was a cover-up by Real Grinders. He stands accused of hurting children. Court of public opinion he's guilty. I mean, even if they acquit him, people are going to think he's guilty. They're going to think he's a pervert. They're going to think he's a loser. Nobody is going to be like, you know what, this guy's a great guy. I'm going to have my 7-year-old daughter babysat by him. Not going to happen. But hey, yeah, he could get acquitted. He could be out. In fact, he could actually get out of jail like tomorrow, right? If somebody posts his bond, he could get out. And that's what Vlado wanted to know about. Vlado asked, why don't you, or is it Vlado? It's either Vlado or Vlado. I don't know. But basically his question or her question is, why don't you post Ray Davis's bail on the condition that he sit with you for a live interview? Well, the problem is I don't have $500,000 lying around, because if I did, instead of doing this podcast, I would be playing like the WPT or whatever big tournament with like a large entry fee is going on right now in the world, because I would be bankrolled for that, right? So I don't have the money to bail him out. Secondly, if what he actually did is true, I really don't want him out, right? If he actually did this, I don't think I want him out. I think I want him in jail. Third, let's say, so again, he's innocent until proven guilty. It's the way that the Constitution is set up. However, if Davis actually did this, I don't want him out. I want him in jail, so that way the children are protected. Now, even better, right? A lot of people have very low tolerance for those accused of hurting children. Davis actually might be safer in jail in solitary confinement than he would be out on the streets, because out on the streets, somebody could find him and like beat him up. Whereas if he's in solitary confinement alone in jail, there's nobody there to beat him up, because there's literally metal bars between him and anybody else, right? Not to say that he couldn't die in jail in solitary confinement, because I believe that actually happened to Jeffrey Epstein, which that scandal would be an entirely separate topic. Now, Jay says Eric C. and Vlado seem fake. Well, maybe the people made up fake names to post the questions because they were so stupid that they didn't want to have their real names on it, right? A lot of the internet trolls, when they have to use their real name, they don't want to say stupid stuff because they know they're stupid, they know they're trolls, and they don't want the entire world to actually realize that they're idiot trolls, so they use fake names. So, maybe Earl's real name is Jack Anderson, right? And Jack doesn't want everybody to know he's a moron, so he posts under a fake name. Maybe Vlado is actually named Samuel, and again, he's using a fake name. That could very well be the case, but these people had questions. I decided to address them. Hey, maybe they are trolls. But in any case, Ray Davis remains in jail. If anybody has $500,000, you can go get him out. My question is, why didn't the Real Grinders people bail him out? They love the guy. He was their leader. Why didn't they get him out of jail? All these people in Real Grinders, they have so much money because they're so great at poker. They win tournaments. Davis had 1.6 million in career winnings. Hey, he could post just a third of his career winnings and get out of jail, right? Less than a third, 1.6 million in career winnings, and he can't post bail. It's kind of weird, but I don't know what happened. Wait, maybe he wasn't that good at poker. Maybe he punted all off. I don't know, but maybe if his defense attorney had an idea on how to respond to us, we would be able to figure that out. So anyway, again, the invite is open. If Davis's counsel wants to come on the show, we will dedicate an entire episode to that. We'll do that. So continuing on here to our next topic. Poker bankrolls and financial scandals. So your host got flamed on the internet today because he suggested, hey, poker players are making a financial mistake, having their bankroll sit idle in the form of cash in a shoebox or under the mattress, or at least some people put it in like a safe at home, right? Well, guess what? I'm right. Your money is literally losing value sitting around because the purchasing power of the dollar falls every year. There's this thing called inflation, right? It's the value of your money getting worse. The inflation rate going back the last few years has been around 2%, right? It was a little over 2% in 2016 and 2017. 2018, it dropped. In 2019, we actually have come down all the way to about a 1.5% rate of inflation, actually below the target that the Federal Reserve has. Now, the forecast for 2020 is that we're going to tick upwards. So I think 1.8% inflation by 2021 will be back to the federal target of 2% inflation. So what's happening is the money you had at the beginning of the year sits there. It becomes worth less, roughly, say this year, 1.5% less. So if you had $10,000 sitting around, guess what? It's worth $150 less than it was at the beginning of the year. So the solution to that I've come up with, and by the way, we're going to talk about this a little later, but people suggest a proper bankroll is something like 100 buy-ins. Some could argue you only need 40 buy-ins. Some would say you need 200 buy-ins. We're just going to go with 100 for the sake of this example. Basically, hey, you're playing $600 tournaments, you need 60,000. If you're playing 1-3 no limit, you need to buy in for $300 for each time. You're going to need $30,000. So if you took a third of that 1-3 bankroll, you invested in an S&P 500 index fund this year, you would have over 2,000 in gains. Now, there's taxes on those capital gains when you sell the stocks. But that same 10,000 sitting at home is going to still be 10,000 and worth less at the end of the year at the beginning. So by letting your money sit idle, you're losing money. If you invest in stocks, you're going to pick up gains. So the thing is the only people that pay taxes are the people who actually earn income. So if you don't earn any income, you don't have to pay any tax. That's why people who have no jobs and are homeless really aren't paying a lot of income tax, because they don't have any income to be taxed on. Meanwhile, if you're like a billionaire or whatever, let's say you have, I don't know, $50 million of income. Yeah, you can get some deductions, but you're probably paying millions of dollars in taxes. So is it better off to have no income so you don't owe tax, or to make a couple $1,000s and yeah, you might have to pay the government somewhere between, I don't know, 400 and 800 of it or whatever, depending on your tax brackets? I would rather make some money and then have to pay the government some tax. And if we look at the value of $10,000, right, based on what sort of yields we could get, in every case, when you've got this positive yield, you're going to see your money gain, right? This year, you would have gained over 2,000. If the market went up 25%, you would have gained even more. And if you're smart about it, when the market has downturns, you can actually look at the short side and make money there. So ultimately, be smart, right? Invest part of your bankroll wisely and let your money work for you. Because if it's sitting at home, if it's sitting in a shoebox, you're not doing anything. And the people who decided to go flame me for this obviously don't have the they don't have the level of financial understanding that that I have. And quite frankly, when you look at the poker community, there's a stereotype that poker players are stupid, they're financially irresponsible, that they're always going broke, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you look at poker players who basically take their rent money and they go play poker and they punt it off, and then they get evicted because they can't pay rent, or they got to beg people for money, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? It's because people are stupid. They don't look at how to maximize their returns. They don't look at what to do with their idle money, et cetera. So on this, I don't know why it's a scandal, but investing is the way to gain money. I've made more money buying stock than I've made playing poker. And so why not do both, right? Why not have your bankroll, instead of sitting in cash, making money for you? Continuing on. So I've got people that claim, oh, great. So we have Mr. Mr. Slicer 1028 here, claiming that I made up questions because I'm a delusional psychopath. Well, these are some strong allegations. I don't even know how to respond to it other than to say, nope, it's not true. Continuing on. Oh, by the way, the last point here, right? You can use the gains from stocks to actually move up in higher stakes and win more money. Your host selling of action. Jackie83 wanted to know, you're a fish. No one's buying your action. Well, guess what, Jackie? That's fake news. It's not true. So I'm selling action to the Party Poker Live Grand Prix Canada, which is coming up. I've sold 13.88% out of 22.50% made available on UStake, and people can still buy it tonight, tomorrow, Thursday. So it's fake news that no one's buying the action, because pretty clearly people have bought up action, and it's a great value. They have the opportunity. This is a tournament that has $500,000 guaranteed. This is huge value, right? $220 tournament, $500K guaranteed. If I ship this thing People can make a huge profit. They are buying the action. Once again, it's fake news. I don't know which people think they're trolling so great. It's just crazy. It's crazy. The people, they love to troll. They just love to troll. They love to attack. They love to be haters. Some of these people, if they were to actually focus on themselves, if they were trying to make themselves better, they'd be better off. But they don't, because they simply want to troll. Jay has a question. Are you selling action to your Limp Call tournament entry? No, I am not selling action to that. There is no guarantee on that tournament. I am only committed to selling action this year on tournaments that have at least $100,000 guaranteed. Unfortunately, New Hampshire doesn't allow tournament guarantees. Also, a $50 tournament is really not going to draw $100,000 of entry usually. So, they wouldn't guarantee that much anyway, even if they could. So, continuing onward. So, your host's profitability. Repeated allegations are that your host is a losing poker player on the verge of going bankrupt. Guess what? It's fake news again, guys. Fake news, right? We look at this chart. It shows the total winnings this year. 63,892. The total buy-ins, 59,680. That's why that's a negative number, because that's money that was invested to buy into stuff. Total winnings, 63,892. That's more than the buy-ins. That is a gross profit of $4,212. So your host has actually made money playing poker this year. And yet the haters, the losers, the internet trolls all claim he is a loser. He's going bankrupt, that he is going to have to live in a cardboard box beneath a highway overpass because he is punting all of his money at the tables. They are absolutely wrong. By the way, let's get into this. By the way, the best in the world, Helmuth, Ivy, Brunson, Chan, those type of guys, they've been at the World Series of Poker, the final tables. They've written books on poker. They've got endorsements. They have lost events and even had losing years. Not every poker player is going to make money in any given random period of time. Yeah, if you go to certain weeks, certain months, you can find where people have lost certain years, certain periods. What really you got to look at is the long run. And people like to pick and choose. Oh, the guy punted in a tournament, so he sucks. Okay, well, let's say you won 4,000 the week before and you punt off a $200 tournament the next week. Well, you're still up $3,800. It's not bad. But what your host has realized this year is that travel expenses can be a killer, right? Travel expenses can erode your profits. You can actually make money at poker and then somehow spend more money traveling to places to play it than you're actually earning in it. And if you're trying to live your life or you're trying to make a living playing poker, you have to be able to not do that. So we can also see here, so Jay says that New Hampshire does allow tournament guarantees. However, it's illegal for the house to add funds to a prize pool. The reason why they do that is if they made a 10,000 guarantee and it's 99.50, they are not allowed to add 50 to the prize pool. So interesting. So theoretically, a poker room in New Hampshire could say, okay, we have 50,000 guaranteed, and if they only have like 8,000 in buy-ins, oh, they're not allowed to add to the prize pool, so the players only get a prize pool of 8,000. So that still seems illegal, right? Because what's going to happen is now you've falsely advertised and you've committed a violation of false advertising to the public that you had a guaranteed prize pool of 50,000 and it only ended up being 8,000. So you now have committed just a different violation of the laws and regulations. So in effect, right, while they may not technically ban guarantees, when they're banning the adding of funds to a prize pool by the house, that is a de facto banishment of guarantees, even though the guarantee is not de jure banned. And yeah, that was a lot of use of Latin phrases. I never took Latin class, but apparently in the legal system, they love they love those sort of terms. So again, your host made money at poker so far this year, and the haters and the losers, they could see it right here. They could see the numbers, so that should hopefully kill any of that talk. Now, we're almost to the end here, but I want to thank everybody for listening to Poker Uncensored, to this special episode of the show. Let's see if we've got any questions from our friends on Twitter or on Facebook. Let's see here. So we have nothing on Facebook. Let's check Twitter here. Tweet. So Jay says, I want to be a future anonymous guest. Okay, well, it's kind of hard to be an anonymous guest on the podcast because I have to be able to send you credentials to log into the streaming software to do it. So I kind of need to know who you are. So that makes it a little bit difficult. The other problem we have here is, of course, with the anonymous commenting, we have people who are haters, who are losers, who are essentially internet trolls that come in and simply ask ridiculous troll questions, right? We have a guy who is accusing me of fabrication tonight on the podcast. Once again, that is fake news. All of the artifacts that have been presented tonight are legitimate artifacts that are accurate and that are correct. Let's see here. We have another one where so Slicer 1028, who I believe is Mr. Christopher Paolino, wants to discuss some allegations that have been brought up. So we will be discussing said allegations against Mr. Paolino before a judge at some point in the near future. So yeah, so as I've stated, the allegations against Mr. Paolino shall be discussed before a judge or a magistrate or whatever they call them in the state of New Hampshire. We will address those before the judge, and we will hope that justice is served. Let's see if there are any other questions or comments here tonight. So back to Twitter. Let's look for some questions. So we had one question here that was asked about the tournament that's coming up in the Grand Prix Canada, about the $500,000. Is that U.S. or Canadian? That is Canadian dollars, right? So the entry is 220 Canadian dollars. The guaranteed prize pool is 500,000 Canadian dollars. Now, before anybody tries to chime in with some stupid remark about how the Canadian dollar is worthless, blah, 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 we're talking Canadian dollars. We're not talking about some currency where it's like 100 to 1, right? The Canadian dollar right now is worth approximately 76 cents. So ultimately, and that's a rough estimate. If we went on FXCM or something, we get an exact spread. But 76 cents, so a 500,000 guaranteed prize pool is about 380,000 United States dollars. The $220, again, 220 Canadian dollar buy-in is roughly 167 United States dollars. So for 167 US dollars, you have a prize pool of approximately 380,000 United States dollars. That is a huge value in a tournament. Where else could you buy into an event for less than $170 and see a prize pool that large when the first place prize is going to probably be in excess of 80,000? Now, assuming the minimum, right? The minimum prize pool, 80,000 Canadian dollars. When we look at how much that is, that's first place prize over $60,000. You could buy in for $167 and you could win over $80,000. If we do the math out, that's 479 times your money, right? Where else are you going to get that level of value? So anyway, that seems to have gotten us through all of the questions that we had tonight. We have guy asking, did you post your own question and now you're answering? No. If we wanted to have people put up fake questions, we would, first off, if we wanted to have softball questions thrown at the host, we could have arranged for that. However, your host is not afraid to take the hard questions. Your host does not need softball questions thrown at him. Here we go. Jay has an actual question. If a New Hampshire poker room ran a Matthew Solon bounty event, where would you want it to take place, and how much would you want the buy-in to be? Well, that's a good question. So I would say that if one of the things I hate about these New Hampshire rooms is that they're capped on the buy-ins, right? So you can't have more than a $250 buy-in. Can't have re-entry or rebuy if it's more than 125. So, and then where would you want it to take place? Yeah, so where would you want it to take place? Well, I can tell you this. We're going to rule out anything that is to the north of Concord, right? Because I think Southern New Hampshire is the sweet spot in New Hampshire poker. So I would say, the real contender to do this would be Manchester Poker. And the reason being, the Manchester Poker Room made some nice capital investment in the player experience in the last couple of years. They went to one of the best in the business when it comes to poker tables, Gorilla Gaming. They got tables that have, very, very nice felts, good design, USB chargers at every seat. They got comfortable seating. They spent a lot of money on that. Those tables are not cheap. They are probably twice the cost, 3 times the cost of your typical poker table. They went out, they made that investment, right? So they have good table quality. Their chip quality sucks, though. They really need to order new poker tournament chips. But the other advantage there, right? They have a full liquor bar. They have a lot of beer selection. They have a full food menu. They have through parking. And then, so I think that would be the good spot for it. Then I think the ideal format would be something like maybe $125 tournament, allow one re-entry to comply with the state law. I would like to see unlimited, but just state law, you can only do one. And then you probably look at doing something like I would want to see 8 to 10 levels of late registration allowed in that event. And then I would also want to see a very good promotional effort, draw a lot of people in. And by the way, we have again, Mr. Paolino here says, oh, if they had a bounty, nobody would show up. Well, guess what, moron? They did actually have a bounty tournament where I was the bounty on the Manchester 2-day last year, and it drew significantly more than 0 people. In fact, I think it drew one of the biggest fields for a 2-day event in the entire year. So, once again, fake news. But back to Jay's question here. Yeah, so I think $125 tournament. I think Manchester would be a good contender. Boston Billiards is possibly a contender. Again, they made a lot of capital investment into that building, building out the new poker room space. Chasers doesn't run tournaments. I feel like they've made a big mistake there, not running tournaments. Seabrook, when they finish out the construction, they have the new room. That would be another great spot to do the tournament potentially. I haven't really experienced their food and beverage program, but yes, they do have free parking. And then Hampton Falls, they need capital investment. They should be getting new tables, new chairs, improving the decor in the room. Like, there's a lot that they have to do. We went into this on the last episode. Interestingly, not a lot of people had any additional commentary on that, right? I guess that wasn't really controversial. I feel like a lot of people agree with the concept that Hampton Falls needs to make investment. And then Mr. Paolino once again says, oh, well, hey, nobody wants to be anywhere near you, and you'd probably bring a gun and shoot the room up. All right, so number 1, troll comment. Number 2, Mr. Paolino is suggesting that I would commit a crime of I guess this would be murder or attempted murder, reckless discharge of a firearm, assault with a deadly weapon, a lot of felonies, basically. I am no criminal. I follow the law. Now, New Hampshire is a great state because we actually have a constitutional right to carry a firearm, which is great because the reason that people need to carry a firearm is effectively to defend themselves against criminals, right? The criminals don't care what the laws are. So the criminals are never going to follow the law. So people need to be able to protect themselves. Now, I have actually taken firearm safety class. So tell you a couple things here. One, so there's this concept that people who are carrying a firearm are just going to like start whipping it out and start like blasting away like nutcases, like it's some sort of like Wile E. Coyote, Yosemite Sam type movie out there, like bang bang, like they're going to be like, oh, I have a beer bottle, I want to open it, let me just like shoot my gun at it to shoot the top off. Nobody actually really does that. Secondly, there are ways that people can safely carry firearms. So, there's things like safeties, right? There's things like not having a round like loaded in the chamber. There's things like, keeping it pointed in a safe direction at all times. Basic firearm safety standards that people can follow to avoid accidental shootings. Secondly, people going around blasting away other people with firearms. Those are the criminals. Those are the people we got to watch out for. Now, the question that just came up here from Jay, isn't Slicer 1028's comment considered slander? Technically, it's not because he wrote it, so therefore it's actually libelous and not slanderous, because slander would be a verbal false allegation, whereas when he puts it in writing, it's now libelous. So yeah, that technically could be. However, I see no reason to, sue him for slander at this point, or libel. Anyway, continuing on here. So again, thank you everybody for listening to this special episode of Poker Uncensored, where we hopefully have answered all of the questions that people have. We were live for about 45 minutes tonight. We basically, any question that people had, we took tonight. We're not afraid of the hard questions. These other people out there that claim that they are so big and so influential in poker, you ask them the hard questions, and what do? They censor you, they ban you, they say you're bad at poker. What are they afraid of? That's the question I have. What are they afraid of? Are they afraid that they'll be exposed as not truly being poker gods? Is that what it is? I don't know. But anyway, thank you everybody for listening to Poker Uncensored. You can follow us on Facebook, where we will announce the date and time in the next episode. This was a very special presentation that we did at kind of last minute. Usually we'll try to do it further in advance. And if we aren't back for Christmas, we wish all of our listeners a Merry Christmas. It is a great federal holiday taking place on the 25th of this month. Santa Claus may be coming to town. If you are one of the haters or the trolls, you may just be getting a lump of coal this year. For the rest of you, though, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and may God bless America.